The lecture hall was a masterpiece of alien design, an enormous amphitheater that seemed to defy physics with its floating platforms and shifting light patterns. Students from every corner of the galaxy filled the space, their diverse forms creating a kaleidoscope of colors and movement. Some floated, others scuttled on many legs, while a few hovered in protective exosuits. Excitement rippled through the crowd. The subject of today's class was a species they all thought they knew, but none had ever truly understood. Professor Talvik, an elder Korthian with translucent, shimmering skin, stepped onto the central podium. His presence demanded respect, his voice resonating through the amphitheater like a harmonic wave. "Today," he began, his multifaceted eyes glinting with curiosity, "we will explore a species whose history is as perplexing as it is violent. We will delve into the combat history of humans." A murmur swept through the crowd. Most of the students had only a cursory knowledge of Earth and its inhabitants. Humans, to them, were a relatively new addition to the galactic concord, a species often regarded as peculiar, fragile, and chaotic. Yet their rapid rise in interstellar influence had been nothing short of baffling. On a raised platform, Ralvik, a young Crescent student, clicked his mandibles skeptically. "Humans? Why would their combat history matter? Their planet is barely out of its primitive stage compared to the rest of the galaxy." A group of his peers chittered in agreement, their bioluminescent scales flickering in amusement. They leaned forward, eager to see what trivialities the professor would present. Others, however, remained silent, their interest piqued by Talvik's reputation for uncovering the unexpected. Talvik gestured, and a holographic display materialized above him. A timeline of Earth's history appeared, stretching back millions of years. As he spoke, images of ancient humans flashed across the screen, primitive hunters wielding stone tools, their faces painted for battle. The professor's voice deepened, carrying a weight that silenced the room. "To understand humans," he said, "you must first understand their world. A planet of extremes, where survival demanded adaptability, resourcefulness, and resilience. From their very beginnings, humans have faced predators far more powerful than themselves. Yet they endured. They thrived. And in doing so, they became something unique." The hologram shifted, displaying the great wars of Earth's history. Tribes clashing over resources, empires rising and falling in bloody conquest. Talvik's tone grew somber as he recounted the staggering losses, the countless lives sacrificed in the name of survival and ambition. "But this is where the story becomes truly fascinating," he continued. "For humans did not merely fight to survive. They fought to evolve. Each conflict, each hardship, pushed them to innovate, to adapt their strategies and technologies. Their capacity for war was matched only by their capacity for growth." Ralvik's skepticism wavered as he watched the images unfold. Scenes of humans wielding primitive weapons gave way to disciplined armies, then to massive machines of war that shook the ground with their power. By the time the hologram displayed nuclear explosions blooming like fiery suns, the lecture hall had fallen into an uneasy silence. A student with crystalline skin raised a hand. "Professor Talvik, what of their galactic influence? Surely such a chaotic history would prevent them from achieving unity?" Talvik inclined his head. "An excellent question. Indeed, humans remain far from united. Their history is one of division, yet it is precisely this division that has honed their abilities. Each conflict forced them to develop new tactics, to anticipate their adversaries' moves. They have turned discord into an art form." He paused, letting the words sink in. The hologram shifted again, this time showing humanity's first ventures into space. Fragile vessels breaking free of their planet's gravity, explorers venturing into the unknown with little more than courage and ingenuity. The students watched as humanity's reach expanded, their technology evolving at a breakneck pace. "Now," Talvik said, "consider this, a species that has spent millennia perfecting the art of survival, whose history is a crucible of conflict and innovation, now steps onto the galactic stage. What happens when such a species is no longer limited by the confines of its own world?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. The hologram displayed humanity's first encounters with other species, diplomatic summits, cultural exchanges, and inevitably skirmishes. Though outmatched technologically, humans had shown a remarkable ability to adapt, turning even their defeats into lessons. Ralvik leaned forward, his mandibles clicking nervously. Professor, are you suggesting that humans are a greater threat than we realize? Talvik's multifaceted eyes gleamed. I am suggesting that we underestimate them at our peril. Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Their history is a testament to this truth. They do not seek conflict, but when it finds them, they rise to the challenge with a ferocity and ingenuity that few can match. He gestured again, and the hologram displayed a recent event, a skirmish between a human fleet and a pirate armada. The pirates, confident in their superior firepower, had expected an easy victory. Instead, the humans had used unorthodox tactics, turning the pirates' own strategies against them. The battle ended with the pirate fleet in ruins, their survivors fleeing in disarray. As you can see, Talvik said, humans have a way of turning the unexpected into their advantage. They are not the most powerful species, nor the most advanced, but they are perhaps the most unpredictable. And in a galaxy rife with conflict, unpredictability is a weapon unto itself. The students sat in stunned silence, their initial amusement replaced by a growing unease. Even Ralvik, who had been so dismissive at the start, seemed shaken. The lecture had painted a picture of humanity that was far more complex, and far more dangerous, than anyone had anticipated. As the session drew to a close, Talvik offered a final thought. History is not merely a record of the past. It is a guide to the future. And if humanity's history tells us anything, it is that they will continue to defy expectations. Whether they become allies or adversaries, one thing is certain, they will leave their mark on the galaxy. The students filed out of the lecture hall, their minds racing with the implications of what they had just learned. For the first time, they saw humans not as chaotic newcomers, but as a force to be reckoned with, a species whose combat history was both a warning and a promise. Ralvik lingered behind, his thoughts heavy. He couldn't shake the images of Earth's violent past, nor the professor's parting words. As he left the hall, he realized that humanity's story was far from over, and that it was one he would be watching closely. The Galactic Concord's central archive, an imposing spire of shimmering energy and crystalline data clusters, was buzzing with activity. News of Professor Talvik's lecture had spread like wildfire, sparking debates across the Concord's member species. Most dismissed the notion of humans as a significant threat, scoffing at the idea that a species so young could pose any real challenge. Yet in private, others began quietly analyzing human history, scrutinizing the patterns Talvik had described. In the aftermath of the lecture, the students who had attended found themselves divided into two camps. On one side were those who clung to their assumptions, insisting that humans were an anomaly at best, a nuisance at worst. On the other were those who couldn't shake the unease sparked by Talvik's revelations. Among them was Ralvik, whose skepticism had given way to a nagging curiosity. Determined to learn more, Ralvik delved into the archives, poring over records of Earth's wars, innovations, and cultural milestones. The more he read, the more he found himself drawn into the chaotic brilliance of humanity's story. Their strategies were unconventional, their victories often improbable, yet there was a thread of relentless determination that ran through it all. It was both fascinating and unsettling. Late one night, as he navigated the archives, Ralvik stumbled upon a restricted file. Its designation was simple: Operation Iron Resolve. His antennae twitched with intrigue. The file bore the seal of the Concord's Intelligence Division, and its access was limited to high-ranking officials. With a mix of caution and defiance, Ralvik bypassed the security protocols, his mandibles clicking nervously as he opened the file. The first image froze him in place. It was a photograph of a human battlefield, the ground scorched and littered with debris. The caption read, Siege of Titani 7. The accompanying data painted a chilling picture. A coalition of advanced Concord forces had launched an incursion into a human-controlled system, expecting an easy victory. Instead, they encountered resistance unlike anything they had ever faced. Ralvik's mandibles trembled as he read the accounts of guerrilla tactics, improvised weaponry, and the sheer audacity of human soldiers who had fought against overwhelming odds. Despite their technological disadvantage, the humans had outmaneuvered the coalition, turning the battlefield into a deadly maze of traps and ambushes. In the end, the coalition forces had been forced to retreat, their reputation shattered. As Ralvik scrolled through the file, a realization struck him. The humans weren't just survivors, they were strategists, innovators, and risk-takers. Their ability to adapt and outthink their opponents was what made them truly dangerous. He closed the file with a shudder, his earlier dismissiveness now replaced with a growing respect for the species he had once mocked. Meanwhile, back on Earth, humanity remained largely unaware of the debates raging within the Concord. For them, survival was simply a way of life. On the outer colonies, settlers worked tirelessly to establish footholds on hostile planets, their ingenuity transforming barren wastelands into thriving communities. In the bustling cities of Earth, scientists and engineers pushed the boundaries of technology, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a hunger to explore. Yet whispers of Concord interest in humanity had reached the ears of Earth's leaders. In secret, preparations were underway. Military strategists reviewed combat scenarios, while diplomats crafted alliances with sympathetic species. Humanity's history had taught them one thing above all: to survive, they needed to be ready for anything. Ralvik's research did not go unnoticed. His unauthorized access to the archives raised alarms within the Concord's intelligence division, and it wasn't long before agents confronted him. They demanded to know why he had accessed the file, their voices cold and threatening. "I wanted to understand," Ralvik replied, his mandibles clicking with defiance. "We laugh at humans, but we don't truly know them. Their history is more complex than we realize. If they are to be our allies, or our enemies, we need to see them for what they are." The agents exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. After a tense silence, they spoke. "The Concord's interest in humanity is not driven by curiosity. It is driven by necessity. What you have seen is just the beginning." Ralvik's antennae twitched. "What do you mean?" The agents hesitated before replying. "There are factions within the Concord who believe humanity poses a threat to galactic stability. Others see them as a potential ally against greater dangers. The debate is far from settled, but one thing is clear: humanity cannot be ignored." Their words lingered in Ralvik's mind as he was released. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that humanity's role in the galaxy was at a crossroads. They could either rise as a force for unity, or become a catalyst for conflict. And the choice would depend not only on humanity itself but on how the Concord chose to engage with them. On a distant colony world, a human commander named Elise Carter stood on the bridge of her starship, her eyes fixed on the vast expanse of space. Reports of Concord activity near human borders had reached her desk, and she knew it was only a matter of time before tensions escalated. But Elise was no stranger to conflict. Like so many others of her kind, she had been shaped by humanity's turbulent history, her resolve forged in the fires of adversity. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered, her voice steady. "If they come, we'll be ready." In the depths of the Concord, Ralvik made a decision. He would continue his research, not out of defiance but out of a genuine desire to understand. If humanity was to become a part of the galactic community, the galaxy needed to approach them with caution, respect, and a willingness to learn. As the stars glittered above him, he whispered a silent promise: to seek the truth, no matter where it led. For in the vast tapestry of the galaxy, humanity's story was only just beginning, and its impact would be felt for generations to come. The silence of space had never felt so heavy. On the fringes of human-controlled space, Commander Elise Carter stood at the helm of her fleet, her gaze fixed on the tactical display before her. The Concord's probing movements along the borders had intensified, their ships shadowing human convoys and scanning outposts. What had started as a quiet standoff was now teetering dangerously close to open conflict. "Status update," Elise commanded, her voice calm yet laced with urgency. "Multiple Concord vessels detected in Sector Theta 6. her tactical officer replied. They're holding position just outside the demilitarized zone. Scans suggest heavy armaments. They're not here for diplomacy. Elise nodded, her expression unreadable. She had spent her entire career preparing for moments like this. Humanity's survival was written in the resilience of its people, and she wasn't about to let that legacy falter. With a deep breath, she activated the comms link to her fleet. Attention all units. Maintain defensive formations. No hostile actions unless provoked. We show strength, not recklessness. As her orders rippled through the fleet, Elise's mind raced. The Concorde's approach was calculated, deliberate. They weren't testing human defenses, they were assessing human resolve. But what the Concorde didn't know was that humanity's strength was more than the sum of its weapons and ships. It was in their ability to adapt, to think unconventionally, and to fight when the odds were stacked against them. Meanwhile, in the Concorde's High Council chambers, debate raged. The revelation of humanity's combat history had created a schism among the member species. Some argued for immediate containment, fearing humanity's potential to destabilize the galaxy. Others, like Professor Talvik, saw an opportunity for alliance, believing humanity's ingenuity could strengthen the Concorde against external threats. You speak of humans as if they are a mere curiosity, growled High Commander Zarnak, his claws tapping the table. But they are a danger, a rogue element in the galactic order. They must be brought to heel before they upset the balance. Talvik leaned forward, his voice measured but firm. And yet you underestimate them at your peril. Humanity's history is not one of conquest, but of survival. If we approach them with hostility, we risk creating an enemy we cannot afford to have. Zarnak's eyes narrowed. If they are so formidable, why not strike now, before they grow stronger? Because strength alone will not defeat them, Talvik countered. They thrive on adversity. Push them too hard, and you will awaken a force the galaxy has never seen. As the council bickered, Ralvik watched from the gallery, his mind a storm of conflicting thoughts. His research had revealed both the brutality and brilliance of humanity, and he found himself wondering, were humans truly a threat, or was the galaxy simply unprepared to understand them? Back in Sector Theta 6, tension reached its breaking point. A Concorde scout ship, emboldened by the standoff, crossed into human territory. Alarms blared across Elise's bridge, and her officers turned to her for guidance. "Commander, your orders?" asked the tactical officer, his voice tight with anticipation. Elise's jaw tightened. She knew the situation was a powder keg, and one wrong move could ignite a war. But retreating would embolden the Concorde, signaling weakness. She had to act decisively. "Deploy a warning drone," she ordered. "Transmit a single message, turn back, or face the consequences." The drone launched, its sleek frame streaking through the void toward the intruding vessel. Moments later, the Concorde ship hesitated, its engines flickering as it received the transmission. For a brief moment, it seemed the standoff would end without bloodshed. Then, a second Concorde vessel surged forward, its weapons systems activating. The display on Elise's console lit up with hostile signatures, and her heart sank. They weren't here to retreat, they were here to provoke. "Red alert," Elise barked. "All units, prepare for engagement. Focus fire on their weapons systems. We disable, not destroy." The first shots erupted like fireworks against the darkness, humanity's ships responding with precision and discipline. The Concorde vessels, though technologically superior, underestimated the ferocity of their opponents. Human fighters darted through the battlefield, exploiting weaknesses and employing tactics the Concorde had never seen. On board the Concorde flagship, Admiral Vares watched the battle unfold, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "They fight like cornered beasts," he muttered. "Unpredictable, resourceful, and relentless." His tactical officer nodded. "They've already disabled 2 of our cruisers. Their fleet coordination is unconventional, but effective." Vares scowled. "Enough of this. Deploy the gravitic disruptor. Let's see how they handle true Concorde power." As the disruptor activated, a wave of energy rippled across the battlefield, disabling human systems and leaving their ships adrift. For a moment, it seemed the Concorde had gained the upper hand. But Elise, ever resourceful, had anticipated such a move. "Activate countermeasures," she ordered. "Redirect all power to manual controls. We fight on our terms." Her fleet adapted swiftly, their ships maneuvering with astonishing agility despite the disruptor's effects. Human ingenuity turned the tide once again, their unconventional tactics confounding the Concorde forces. One by one, the enemy vessels were forced to retreat, their pride battered and their confidence shaken. As the last Concorde ship vanished into hyperspace, cheers erupted across Elise's bridge. But she remained composed, her gaze fixed on the tactical display. "This isn't the end," she murmured. "They'll be back. And next time, they won't underestimate us." Far away, Ralvik watched the battle's aftermath through intercepted transmissions. His admiration for humanity deepened, but so did his concern. The Concorde's arrogance had been their downfall, and Ralvik feared what would happen if they continued to provoke a species as unpredictable as humans. In the quiet of his quarters, he began drafting a report, urging the Council to reconsider their approach. For Ralvik, the choice was clear: humanity was not an enemy to be crushed, but a potential ally to be understood. As stars glittered in the vast expanse of space, the seeds of a new chapter in galactic history were sown. The Battle of Sector Theta 6 had proven one thing beyond doubt: humanity was not to be underestimated. And their story was far from over. The aftermath of the battle in Sector Theta 6 reverberated across the galaxy, a ripple of shock and awe spreading through the vast network of Concorde territories. Humanity had stood its ground against the technological might of the Concorde, and the implications of their victory were clear. These were not a species to be trifled with. Commander Elise Carter paced the command deck of her flagship, resolute, her mind racing. Reports from the engagement flooded in, detailing the ingenuity and resilience of her fleet. It was a victory, but it wasn't without cost. Several ships were severely damaged, and countless lives had been lost in the defense of human space. Yet they had proven their mettle, sending a message that humanity would not bow to the Concorde's intimidation. "Commander," her communications officer called, breaking her train of thought. "Incoming transmission. It's from the Concorde Council." Elise's eyes narrowed. On screen, the holographic display flickered to life, revealing the stern visage of High Commander Zarnak. His usual air of superiority was muted, replaced by something that resembled caution. "Commander Carter," Zarnak began, his voice clipped. "You have proven that humanity possesses unexpected tenacity. The Concorde wishes to discuss terms." Elise raised an eyebrow. "Terms? Are you proposing peace, or is this another attempt to assert dominance?" Zarnak's mandibles twitched, betraying his frustration. "The Council acknowledges the value of avoiding further conflict. Humanity has demonstrated strength, but make no mistake, this is not a concession. It is a pragmatic decision to prevent unnecessary losses on both sides." Elise leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "If the Concorde truly seeks peace, then you will treat humanity as equals. No more posturing, no more incursions. We are not prey to be hunted, nor pawns in your games." Zarnak's image flickered slightly as he hesitated. "The Council will deliberate on your terms. Until then, we propose a temporary ceasefire." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Elise staring at the empty space where Zarnak's hologram had been. Her officers exchanged uneasy glances, but she remained calm. "Inform all fleets to hold position and maintain readiness," she ordered. "A ceasefire isn't peace, it's just a pause." As her crew carried out her orders, Elise couldn't shake the feeling that the Concorde's sudden willingness to negotiate was part of a larger scheme. She needed to stay ahead of them, to understand not just their tactics, but their fears. Meanwhile, in the Concorde's council chambers, Professor Talvik addressed the assembly. His voice carried the weight of urgency as he argued for a new approach. "High Commander Zarnak's tactics have failed," he stated bluntly. "Humanity is not a threat to be eradicated, they are a force to be reckoned with. If we continue on this path, We risk awakening the very thing we seek to control. Zarnak bristled. And what would you have us do? Surrender to them? Bow to their unpredictable ways? No, Talvik replied, his tone measured. We must adapt, just as they have. Engage with them as partners, not adversaries. Their resilience and ingenuity could strengthen the Concord in ways we've never imagined. The council erupted in debate, the arguments ranging from fear of humanity's potential to cautious optimism about cooperation. In the end, a resolution was reached. A delegation would be sent to Earth to initiate formal talks. When the delegation arrived weeks later, they were met with both skepticism and curiosity. The Concord envoys, led by Talvik, found themselves standing before humanity's leaders in a tense but civil meeting. Elise Carter was among the human representatives, her presence a reminder of the battles fought and won. Let's dispense with pleasantries, Elise began, her voice firm. What does the Concord really want? Talvik stepped forward, his demeanor calm. We seek understanding. Our previous approach was misguided. Humanity has shown us that you are not only capable of defending yourselves, but of teaching the galaxy a new way of thinking. Elise studied him carefully. And what makes you think we're interested in teaching? You've spent decades dismissing us, and now you want to learn from us? Talvik's expression softened. Because we see now what we failed to before. Your history of conflict isn't just about war, it's about survival, about creativity in the face of insurmountable odds. The galaxy needs that spirit, especially with threats beyond the Concord looming. His words hung in the air, a heavy silence falling over the room. Elise exchanged a glance with her fellow representatives, then nodded. If this is to work, it must be on equal terms, she said. No more looking down on us as primitives. Humanity will not be anyone's lesser. Talvik inclined his head. Agreed. Over the months that followed, humanity and the Concord began an uneasy alliance. Trust was slow to build, but mutual benefits emerged. Humanity shared their unconventional strategies, their knack for turning adversity into opportunity. In return, the Concord offered access to advanced technologies and a seat at the galactic table. But even as this fragile partnership grew, Elise remained vigilant. She knew that alliances could shift, that trust could be broken. Humanity's survival had always depended on staying one step ahead, and she intended to ensure that continued. Back on Earth, as the first joint research facility between humans and Concord opened, a new chapter in galactic history began. Humanity was no longer the underdog, no longer dismissed as a backwater species. They had earned their place, not through conquest, but through resilience and determination. As Elise watched the stars from the bridge of her ship, she allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The battles fought, the lives lost, it had all been for this moment. Humanity had not only survived but thrived, proving that they were more than the sum of their struggles. Commander, her communications officer called. We've received a message from the Concord Council. They wish to discuss joint operations against external threats. Elise smiled faintly. Looks like the galaxy is finally learning. Let's show them what humanity can do. And with that, the Resolute turned toward the stars, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For humanity, the journey was just beginning.